Part 59. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 590. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Open your mouth and shut up the person behind me. It seems that you are sure there is someone behind me. Lu Feng walked unhurriedly and said, then why don't you just talk to the person behind me? Don't talk to me. This pawn calculation, and I am very satisfied to be on the board. Mr. Chen kept staring at Lu Feng, trying to see something in his eyes. Among her suspects, it might be the 3 banks that attacked her, or it might be the international capital that suppressed her, such as Tiger Fund, Morgan Investments, etc. In addition, there is another object of suspicion, that is Sun Hongkai, but Mr. Chen doesn't quite believe it is Sun Hongkai. Mr. Feng has no intention of doing this now, and his life is almost impossible to save. But she got some news that Lu Feng and Feng Xiao went to Aid Securities to open an account. For a while, she didn't know if it was true or not. Now the most important thing is to win over other shareholders. Choose her, and it will basically be her next time. In 2 years, it can be considered an early life after retirement. Everyone entered the conference room and took their seats. Lu Feng found his seat and sat down. The sign in front of him said the 4 characters of Hurricane Capital. Lu Feng came today on behalf of Hurricane Capital. As the number of people arrived, the secretary of the board of directors sat down and said, a lot of things have happened to Chen's Capital recently. The board of directors has changed a lot, and some shareholders no longer invest in Chen's Capital for personal reasons, but others see it. In the future of Chen's Capital, we are willing to go further together. The shareholder of this board meeting is Hurricane Capital. According to the regulations of the board of directors, it complies with the convening regulations. Now it is officially started. Mr. Lu, the representative of Hurricane Capital, is invited to speak as the convener. The secretary of the board of directors looked at Lu Feng. Lu Feng cleared his throat and said, as one of the investors who just joined our Chen Capital, the board of directors was held right after I joined. It's a bit abrupt. If it's about seniority, I'll give you a compliment here. Everyone laughed, and it was you who turned Chen's Capital upside down. Now you are sitting here and making a fuss. Why does it sound like a sarcastic person? Close the door. Everyone is a family with common interests. Some time ago, I did launch waves of attacks on Chen's Capital. I think this is not only hatred, but also kindness, because we are a family. My all-out attack is just a grind. Think about it, what would have happened if I didn't sit here now? This is a wake-up call. Lu Feng looked at everyone present with a worried look on his face. Many shareholders were speechless, but after thinking about it, he felt that Lu Feng was right. It just felt like something wasn't right. It's like someone came over and beat you up, and then forced you to recognize him as your godfather. You couldn't stand the beating, so you recognized your godfather, but this person turned around and told you, fortunately it's me, we're a family man, I am exercising you. A problem revealed from this incident is that the ability to resist risks is too poor. Once someone shorts the market value and takes the opportunity to buy at a low price, it is a very scary thing. The main responsible person for this problem is the current executive chairman, President Chen. Lu Feng looked at President Chen and said, it's just one thing for me to hold a board meeting, let her be laid off. Everyone has a good understanding of this matter, and all their eyes are on Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen leaned on the chair and said, Chen's Capital was founded by me. Major shareholders, corporate investment yields have risen year after year, and great achievements have been made in many financial fields such as funds, wealth management, accounting for companies, and assistance in listing. Especially last year, drastic improvements were made in venture capital. Invested in 29 companies, with hundreds of millions of funds, and now some companies have conducted the second round of financing. Whether it's last year's financial report or the previous few years' financial report, the company I'm in charge of is worthy of every penny invested by every shareholder. Let me go, Mr. Chen said with an indescribable aura, and shouted, "What is the name of Chen's Capital, which I don't manage? Change its name to Lose Capital." Everyone in the room looked at each other. Mr. Chen did a really good job. She didn't know much in the professional field. Her greatest value was interpersonal relationships. She could find money and relationships when she needed money. A lot. In addition, Mr. Chen needs an annual salary every year, and the annual salary has reached 30 million Hong Kong dollars. He is the executive chairman with the highest annual salary in the financial circle, and he is domineering. A man in his 40s coughed and said, "First, I think it is impossible to use previous work to equalize current achievements. 1 yardage is 1 yardage. Mr. Chen has been in charge of the company for many years, and now that the company has grown, it must be give someone a chance later." The man said it politely. "I also think that President Xiao is right. Chen is always going to retire, so it's time to train a successor. Otherwise, at the end of the year, we will choose someone to come up, and President Chen will call if he is free. Of course, you still need to continue to preside over the overall situation." Everyone nodded in agreement. This is the best. President Chen glanced at Lu Feng and said, "Okay, I agree. In this case, my requirement is that the candidate can be a professional manager or a member of the board of directors, but there is a requirement that joining the board of directors does not less than 2 years." These conditions were obviously used to limit Lu Feng. Lu Feng laughed and said, "Mr. Chen, don't worry, my company is too busy to manage Chen's capital. It's better to take precautions early." "Do you agree?" the board secretary asked. He then raised his hands to vote, and soon the approval was approaching 50%. Lu Feng was a little anxious and raised his hand to vote against. The approval and disapproval were basically the same. Man. He holds more than 15% of the shares, and is the second person besides Lu Feng to break into the board of directors of Chen's Capital in the recent turmoil. Many people even believe that Lu Feng is covering this person. "I object," the man voted against. "We will discuss this matter again." Everyone's approval and opposition are similar. For the development of the company, I hope everyone will think more about it, communicate more in private, and put the company's interests first. The board of directors discussed the development direction for the second half of the year, especially what to do if the situation like Lu Feng happened again, and revised the entry threshold for the board of directors, which was considered to increase the cost of the next Lu Feng attack. After leaving the conference room, it was almost noon. Chen's Capital arranged lunch, but Lu Feng didn't eat it. This matter finally came to an end. Yesterday, Mr. Feng called him and asked him to go to Feng's house for dinner today, just in time. "Take this opportunity to say goodbye." Lu Feng was on the phone with Zhang Xiaoyan every day, and his mind had already returned home, and he wanted to go back too. Lu Feng arrived at the parking lot, got into the car on the front foot, and got into the car on the back foot. President Chen also stepped out of the car, kicked the accelerator and galloped away, as if she didn't want to worry about Chen's Capital anymore. "This woman seems to be angry with someone," Lu Feng muttered. Lu Feng guessed right. Chen Shifeng was arguing with the entire board of directors. She founded the company and worked hard on her own. These investors just brought in the money, but they were guarding her and guarding against thieves. Chen Shifeng was not so resentful towards Lu Feng. She was even more annoyed that the board members didn't give her money to invest in the stock market at a critical moment. Since everyone didn't care about the life of the company and only wanted to make money, she stopped playing. Love whoever. Chen Shifeng just wanted to make them anxious. She didn't care about anything for the remaining half a year, waiting for these people to come to her, knelt in front of her and begged her to take care of it. President Chen returned to the villa. Su Yurong just finished cleaning up the house. She was stunned when she saw President Chen coming back, and asked, "Aren't you participating in the board of directors?" "Participation is over." President Chen sat down at the shoe-changing place with a dark face. Su Yorong squatted down to help her change her shoes, and asked with concern, "Is it a very unpleasant discussion?" "It's not unpleasant, it just doesn't give me face." "It doesn't matter anyway. I won't resign until the end of the year. Let's continue playing." "I won't go for half a year. Look, they have to come and beg me before the end of the year." Chen always confident. When Su Yorong heard this, her heart sank, but the expression on her face was very good, and she comforted, "They just don't know what's wrong, how tired you are all day long. It's better if you don't go, just rest at home." "Have you cooked yet?" Mr. Chen asked. "Not yet. I'll go upstairs to rest for a while." "You go shopping for food. Let's rest for a few days." President Chen ordered a few dishes, then moved upstairs and walked upstairs. Su Yorong nodded and agreed, changed her shoes and went to buy groceries, but she was unhappy. At what time? Half a year? She couldn't bear it for even half a month, and she had to wait half a year? If she really ignores it for the past 6 months, the performance of Chen's capital is likely to plummet, and the board of directors will really let her continue to serve as executive chairman under pressure. In this case, when will you be able to start? Su Yorong parked the car in the supermarket parking lot. Her eyes were ruthless. She would never allow the chance she finally got, and just slipped away from her hand. "Chen's capital is mine." Su Yorong understood that this matter had to be discussed in the long run. She got out of the car and found a phone booth to call Lu Feng first. As a result, the call was transferred to the hotel front desk, telling her that Lu Feng was not in the hotel. "When he comes back, tell him that I will call him at night and ask him to pay attention to answering." Su Yorong hung up the phone and walked towards the supermarket. Feng's house. In the restaurant, 4 people, Mr. Feng, Feng Xiao, Jinken, and Lu Feng, were sitting on the table. This was a pure family banquet. Being able to have a family banquet with Mr. Feng was already something that ordinary businessmen looked up to. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and said, "I still have to thank Mr. Feng for your help. Otherwise, with my own strength, I will not be able to sit on the board of directors of Chen's capital in my life." Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 591. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Mr. Feng said bluntly, "In the board of directors of Chen's capital, there are still many supporters of Chen Shifeng. If you want to control it for a while, it is not easy. My suggestion is to arrange your people first to serve as some deputy positions. Let the board see that your people are competent." Speaking from the bottom of my heart, because of the tossing about Chen's capital, I did have a bit of an outlet at the beginning. I also thought of being a financial backing for GFN Electronics, which can be used to provide financial support for its rapid expansion. Lu Feng looking at Mr. Feng, he said, "I have been eyeing international trade recently." International trade? Mr. Feng and Jinken looked at each other and thought to himself that he was really dishonest. No wonder he was thinking about taking a stake in the shipping group. "Mr. Lu, is the development too fast?" Jinken thought it was incredible. How could such development happen? According to Mr. Feng's vision for GFN Electronics, it will become a well-known brand in 20 years. If Lu Feng is so tight, where did it take 20 years? Unfortunately, the competition for TV products in mainland China is already very fierce. Going overseas to find new markets is a must. Prepare in advance, Lu Feng explained. "But who wants the products you make?" Mr. Feng glanced at Feng Xiao and said, "I heard Xiao say that the TV you made was a product 20 or 30 years ago. Compared with international technology, it is indeed relatively backward." Lu Feng did not deny it. "Then how do you sell it?" Mr. Feng said with doubts on his face. "Isn't international trade in the shape of a pyramid? Developed countries at the top import such products, developing countries manufacture such products, and backward countries export resources. You sell this product to developed countries, and no one wants it? Then sell it to a backward country, Lu Feng said indifferently. Mr. Feng didn't want to ask, he could sell it how he wanted. He was definitely not an ordinary person if he could make money from the pockets of the poor. When you go back this time, Xiao won't go back with you. He should go to work and exercise, Mr. Feng said to Lu Feng. He has grown up a lot with you during this time. You're welcome, it's mainly because Xiao has a bright mind. Mr. Lu, GFN Electronics' current asset status is very good, the sales of VCD are very good, and the entertainment aspect is also steaming daily. Your college student is doing an internship in an enterprise, and you have done a very good job in talent training. Mr. Feng put down his chopsticks and said, to tell the truth, in the aspect of enterprise planning and management, you have done very well in some areas, which also made my eyes shine. You did very well. GFN Electronics has gone through the period of infants and young children, and stable development is the most important thing. In fact, I was a little worried when you first came here, because you are looking for funds everywhere. Give the company a time to develop scale, and then expand. The capital chain is too tight, and once it fails, all previous efforts will be forfeited. I know, Lu Feng nodded again and again. I will pay attention to the risks in this regard. My suggestion is, don't invest in international trade first, make steady progress in the local market, wait until the product can be sold in the international market, and then invest. Just take advantage of this time. You can find someone to work slowly on the board of directors of Chen's Capital. Slow business, Mr. Feng suggested. I must seriously consider it. Lu Feng took the path of Chen's Capital just to cultivate a shareholder to fight against Sun Hongkai. However, Mr. Feng also saw through his idea and quietly invested in Chen's Capital. The story of wolf skin. As the cups were changed, the atmosphere at the dinner table improved. Taking advantage of his happiness, Lu Feng announced, I wasn't in such a hurry to go back, but suddenly there is good news. My wife is pregnant. Congratulations, Sister Xiao Yan is too happy, Feng Xiao said overjoyed. I heard President Zhang say that she wants a child. The fact that she wants a child has already reached your ears. Lu Feng smiled and said, it can be considered a wish. It should be full moon by this time next year, and the banquet will be coming. Definitely, what I like the most is to recruit people. This is a blessing bestowed by God. Mr. Feng showed love on his face, and said, when the child is full moon, let me see it and recognize him as a godfather. No problem, Lu Feng agreed immediately. After eating and drinking tea for a long time, Mr. Feng's meaning was very straightforward, that is, he hoped that Lu Feng would take a steady course, and told him a lot of things that a company needs to experience to grow and develop. When a company and a founder reach the threshold of a large company, their mentality and development ideas will change. If they find the right path, they will become popular all the way. Lu Feng could only nod his head in agreement. He understood the big truth. Now he can only listen. He was an investor, and he spent the money. It wasn't until 9 o'clock in the evening that Lu Feng left Feng's house and got into the car politely. Just after returning to the hotel, the girl at the front desk saw him coming back and said, Mr. Lu, you have a call in the afternoon from a Miss Su who said she will call again at night. Okay, I see, Lu Feng said, got on the elevator, and as the elevator door closed, he sighed secretly. Su Yurong could completely leave Chen Shifeng and slowly manage his network. What she is most afraid of now is that after leaving Chen's Capital, Su Yurong's investment of more than 1,000 yuan in mainland China will be taken over by others. By then, the misappropriation of funds will be exposed. This is enough to keep her in jail. Sit and wear. What's more, Chen Shifeng is still a person who will retaliate. During this time, she was full of anger and had nowhere to put it. Su Yurong was in a dilemma, and Lu Feng had no choice. As the elevator door opened, Lu Feng entered the room, called the hotel, and asked them to book a ferry ticket for tomorrow. President Chen had already rested. Su Yorong was sitting in the living room lighting a cigarette, feeling a little irritable. Looking at the time on the wall, he stood up and walked towards the room on the first floor. There was a landline. After dialing the phone, the other side picked it up after several rings. Su Yorong asked, "Is he not back yet?" "I just came back, what's the matter?" Lu Feng asked. "I just want to know, can't the current situation of Chen's capital be quickly reversed? Su Yorong hopes to kick President Chen out as soon as possible, and she will take control of Chen's capital. I told you before that there is a premise for you to control this company. Mr. Feng has to support it." Lu Feng sat down and said to the phone, "I just came back from the Feng family's dinner, and the other party doesn't support it at all." "Why don't you support it?" "Didn't he want to kill Chen's capital?" Su Yorong asked inexplicably. "He doesn't want to kill Chen's capital, but to check and balance me. If you control Chen's capital, I can get financing, but today I told him about international trade. He didn't support it, so I can rest assured in the mainland development." Lu Feng whispered, "So he didn't mention how much he held in Chen capital at all?" Su Yorong frowned upon hearing this and said, "He put a chain on you?" "Yes. This is what he wants, but I also said that I want to do international trade." Lu Feng said solemnly, "He didn't say anything, so you are only halfway through taking charge of Chen's capital. My idea is, you quit, avoid it for a while." Su Yorong grabbed her hair with her hands. She was extremely unwilling. She managed to survive until now, and she has to push back. The key is that Mr. Feng does not support. She would then face the risk of being useless. After so many years of mixing, Su Yorong understands one thing very well: life must have value, even if it is a waste, and the waste can be reused. "I don't have a place to live. Besides, most of Xiangjiang knows about my relationship with her. I have nowhere to go unless I go abroad." Su Yorong asked tentatively, "Are you so willing to be trapped by a Sun Hong Kai? It doesn't make much sense to be reconciled. At such an urgent moment last year, it is a kind of kindness for people to come up with money to invest in shares." Lu Feng pondered for a while and said, "Tickets, go back." Lu Feng did not refuse. In Su Yorong's ears, this was unwilling, but there was nothing he could do under the roof. "I see. According to the procedures of the board of directors, if the executive chairman suddenly has an accident, will it change the rules of the game?" Su Yorong asked. Hearing this, Lu Feng was shocked, and hurriedly said, "I advise you not to mess around. You have no background in this place, not to mention that Chen Shifeng still has children, but he is only abroad." "Don't worry, I got it." Su Yorong already had some ideas in his mind, chatted a few other things, and then hung up the phone. Lu Feng stood up and went to wash up. He didn't want to get involved in Su Yorong's affairs. This person has been walking a tightrope, so he should take care of himself. If she is useful, she will use it. Connect. Su Yorong went to the living room and was a little upset. He sat there and just lit a cigarette. The door to the bedroom on the second floor was pushed open. President Chen came out wearing a nightgown, stood on the second floor and said, "What time is it? Why do not you rest?" Su Yorong was slightly startled, raised her head and said, "I can't sleep. Why did you wake up?" "I can't sleep a little too. Although I say I can't go to the company, I'm used to going to the company every day. I have nothing to do tomorrow, but I can't fall asleep." Mr. Chen walked downstairs muttering. Even if you're not out of work, staying at home every day is boring. Why don't you go out for a walk?" Su Yorong's thoughts turned quickly. "Where are you going?" "I feel bored wherever I go now. It's all high-rise buildings, or it's a pool party." Mr. Chen walked to the sofa and sat down, as if he had long been disappointed by this extravagant life. Su Yorong had an idea and said, "Would you like to go to Africa?" Watching the migration of animals, from June to September every year, now is the time, it's very spectacular. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 592. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Go to Africa to see animals? This proposal made Mr. Chen's eyes shine. She had seen the most luxurious things on earth, but she had never seen the wild beauty of nature. I have played in rich and noble areas, and it is a different experience to go to a poor place. This proposal is very good, is it safe? President Chen asked casually. Watching TV is very bad for mosquitoes. In recent years, more and more people want to enter Africa. Where there are people, there are business opportunities. There are already professional companies providing services in this area, and they are accompanied by the most professional teams throughout the process. Su Yorong thought after thinking about it, it's like a one-stop service for medical staff, security team, diet, and daily life. So good. President Chen was very surprised. Yes, as long as you have money. Then you can arrange it, and I'll go out to relax too, Mr. Chen said, stood up and walked upstairs. Okay, Su Yorong watched President Chen go upstairs, and a heart was put into his stomach. It was not until President Chen returned to the bedroom that Su Yorong sat down, lit a cigarette again, and said to himself, don't do it again and again. The next day, Lu Feng simply packed his things. Feng Xiao was already driving downstairs. Lu Feng went downstairs and checked out the room. Seeing him, he was a little surprised and said, what are you doing here? I want to send you off. Feng Xiao looked at Lu Feng. The two of them had not known each other for a long time, but he had been through so much in the days around Lu Feng, and he felt a little reluctant for a while. Logically speaking, this period of time was very short, but it felt more profound to him than his 4 years in college. Feng Xiao also wondered why he was so reluctant to bear him. Brother Feng, I can't bear you, Feng Xiao smiled shyly. There's nothing to be reluctant to give up, it's not old or 80, and there will be opportunities to meet in the future. Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and said, work hard and learn more. Feng Xiao nodded, pondered for a moment, and said, I don't feel that I was so uncomfortable when I graduated from college. Maybe it's because I have experienced too much during my time with Brother Feng. Lu Feng laughed and said, that's right, I'll take you to do some unreasonable work, let's go, get in the car. Feng Xiao knew that it was not that he was indifferent, but that Lu Feng had opened up a whole new world for him. A world he could not see as a rich second generation. The hardships of starting a business alone, the pressures and problems that come from all directions, all need him to solve, and he needs to build interpersonal relationships, and Mr. Feng already has all of Lu Feng's efforts. In the past, Feng Xiao really believed that it was natural for Dad to make a phone call to solve things. When everyone faced their house, they smiled. Everyone was so polite, taking care of all his emotions and everything. All well arranged. During this time with Lu Feng, Feng Xiao realized that everything was done through hard work. He also understood it before, but understanding and experiencing it again are two different things. For things that others may not be able to do with their lives, Mr. Feng only needs to make a phone call, and the other side will agree to it very respectfully and do it very beautifully. Especially the trip to Hefei with Lu Feng made Feng Xiao's memory very deep. Halfway through the car, Lu Feng saw a newsstand and said to Feng Xiao, stop the car, I'll buy some newspapers to read. Lu Feng got out of the car and brought a copy of each of the entertainment, finance, fashion magazines, and other newspapers. He sat in the car and read it. The headline on the front page was that a popular female star went home with a certain male star and was photographed together. In the financial category, a company was found to have financial fraud for 5 consecutive years. The company executives took care of multiple lovers, and there was an incestuous relationship. As for Lu Feng, it has long since passed, and now the Hong Kong media industry is very developed, and it can be regarded as the strongest paper media in the internet era. The result of the high-speed flow of information is that people's memory is only 7 seconds. There is too much information pouring in from all directions, and a hot topic has been hyped for a few days. Maybe when ordinary people first started watching this matter, they were talking about it. Replaced naturally. Lu Feng can be sure that when he comes back to Hong Kong after a while, not many ordinary people will know what he has done. Even if there is a little memory left, he will stand there for a long time, thinking about it for a long time, and finally let it go. The car stopped at the dock. Feng Xiao glanced at the newspaper and sighed. Sometimes people feel that people are being led by the nose by the media. They wake up dazzled every day and don't know what to focus on. Normal, print media is not a big explosion of information. When you wake up one day, a lot of useless information will hit your eyes. That's the beginning of the pain. Lu Feng folded the newspaper and put it on the in front of the windshield. He said, "So don't be swayed by the eyes and words of the outside world, and don't be kidnapped, because their memory is only 7 seconds. Feng Xiao nodded thoughtfully and said, "So do what you want, don't have weaknesses, you are good everywhere, just carry the dignity and face raised by the rich." Lu Feng patted the newspaper in front of him and said, "No one cares." Lu Feng opened the car door and got out of the car, carrying his bag and walking towards the entrance. Feng Xiao watched Lu Feng's back drown in the crowd. He took the newspaper and read it for a while, muttered the phrase "win the king or lose the bandit," turned the car and went home. Mr. Feng will give him the position of vice president, mainly responsible for the investment department of Sun Hong Kai. This department is particularly trained and can get in touch with a lot of contacts, which can be regarded as helping him build relationships. Standing on the deck, Lu Feng looked at the surging sea water, and he was still a little happy. He wondered if Zhang Xiaoyan was fat now. Su Yorong was extremely fast. She arranged everything in the morning, and the plane took off in the afternoon. The two of them didn't bring anything, just brought money. According to the plan, they first went to Africa to watch animal migrations, then went to Europe for vacation, and then went to Antarctica. After this trip, it was basically the end of the year. President Chen wore a large sun hat and a long skirt with a pattern. He looked so elegant. After getting in the car, Su Yorong followed and sat in the back row, and the driver sped off with a kick of the accelerator. The phone at home rang, and after a few rings, the message began to play, "I am Chen Shifeng, I have gone on vacation to Africa, and will not answer any calls during this time. If you have something, please leave a message after the beep." The door to the conference room of Chen's capital company was pushed open, and an assistant came over and said to a group of executives, "Mr. Chen is on vacation." "Okay, we got it." The meeting continued, and without Chen Shifeng, the company was still operating normally. As the boat docked, Lu Feng got off the boat with the crowd and took a taxi home. When he arrived at the door of the house, he found that the house was locked. After walking around the house, he went to the research and development company. The R/U0026D company has rented a few offices from the original, and now has the entire floor. The staff size has also changed. There are also several subordinate laboratories and R/U0026D institutes. There are nearly 500 R/U0026D engineers, which is already a very large team. With the last internal reorganization, the competitiveness has become stronger. Lu Feng entered the company and nodded with satisfaction as he saw the busy atmosphere in the company. "Who are you looking for?" asked a man in his 20s with a childish look on his face. "I'll take a look," Lu Feng said casually. The man looked at Lu Feng and felt that he was about the same age as him, and said, "Are you from our company?" Forget it, Lu Feng smiled and looked at the badge hanging on his chest, which read, Lu Tianpeng, intern. What about your work card? Lu Tianpeng grabbed Lu Feng's shoulder with one hand and said, don't fool around here, go out. Lu Feng was not annoyed either. Seeing him like this, he should have been sent by the talent center. He asked with a smile, there are no security guards in the company. You intern, why are you still acting as a security guard? Which school did you graduate from? Which school do you care about? Lu Tianpeng was particularly upset. A guy about his age actually asked himself in a condescending tone, who did he think he was? Isn't this just a chat? How long have you been here? Lu Feng asked again. Get out, Lu Tianpeng instructed a young man next to him, that idiot, pour me a glass of water. Lu Feng looked at this office area. Basically, they were all interns. They were also responsible for the scattered work of some companies. Clean up the office and get some documents. Whichever department has a project, he will take it with him. When Lu Cheng was talking with Lu Feng about the intern system, he felt that talents should not be buried. Giving them a chance to choose by themselves would also give each department a chance to choose. Gather the interns together first, and participate in whichever department has a project. They can choose the department, and the department also chooses them. After all, they are top students, so it is more flexible. However, Lu Feng came unannounced today, but saw the scene in front of him. The taciturn young man did not move, which made Lu Tianpeng unhappy, and scolded, I'm talking to you, deaf. The man stood up with his head lowered, took the water glass on his table, and prepared to fetch water. Lu Feng stretched out his hand and pulled the man over, and asked, you are all interns, why do people pour water for you? As soon as these words came out, the other interns raised their heads and stared at Lu Feng. They felt that this man was talking a bit too much, and looked at him carefully. It has been almost a month since they had been here, and the supervisors and leaders of various departments have met. There is no such person. Who are you? Another bigger buddy stood up and said, it has nothing to do with you. What are you doing here? Are you from a partner company? One question after another came, but Lu Feng didn't answer at all. He pulled the young man next to him and asked, why did he fetch you water? Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 593. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. There are hundreds of people in the company, and each department has its own supervisor. They have never seen someone like Lu Feng who came out of nowhere to meddle. Dude, what do you mean? He's happy to fetch me water. Lu Tianpeng sat down and said with his finger, Lu Feng, are you from our company? Don't mind your own business. If it's not from the company, get out of here as soon as possible. I was here to find someone today, and I really wanted to take care of it when I saw this. Lu Feng said to everyone, as interns, you were not assigned to the department, I just hope you choose what you like. Son, all departments will also examine you, this is a two-way selection mechanism, how can they bully each other? A rather mature-looking man came over, pulled Lu Feng with his hand, and said in a low voice, are you from the company? I'm from the company, but I don't come often. Lu Feng said to him, what's wrong? The companies don't come often? That is not the headquarters of the research and development company, but the research institutes below or the subordinate cooperative units. I advise you, don't make trouble, meddling in business will only be bad for you, everyone's background is different. The man persuaded Lu Feng kindly and said, don't ruin your job, here is the same as below. The research institute is different, the water is very deep, you are still young, you can't control it. Lu Feng couldn't help laughing when he heard this. He couldn't control himself? I want to see, how deep is this water? Deeper than the Yangtze River, Lu Feng asked with a smile, just tell me, what background do you have? Lu Tianpeng's face was full of pride, he licked his lips and said, I advise you not to ask, it's good for you. Don't play mystery with me here, just say, what kind of leader are your relatives here? Lu Feng scolded him. The young man Lu Feng was holding looked very honest and didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so he broke free from Lu Feng's hand and said, I'll go get some water. What are you drinking? Lu Feng stretched out his hand to pull his clothes, dragged him back, and asked, you have worked so hard to study for so many years, and you entered the company's best R/U0026D company as an intern through the talent center. So much, just to fetch him water. Lu Feng's words were too irritating to him. He took a deep breath, tears already glistening in his eyes. Speak, Lu Feng shouted at Lu Tianpeng, which leader? The manager in charge or the vice president of the company? Lu Tianpeng stood up and said to Lu Feng in a slightly condescending manner, you look down on me too much, my uncle is the boss. There are more bosses, which one? What's your name, and what business is in charge of? Lu Feng pressed towards him. The old-fashioned buddy next to him whispered, you are the boss, you must be the boss. Big boss. Lu Feng looked at Lu Tianpeng, he didn't have such a big nephew. Mr. Lu, my uncle, what's the matter? Lu Tianpeng put his hands in his pockets, looking at Lu Feng's expression of fear. Lu Cheng, Lu Feng couldn't believe it, Lu Cheng would bring his nephew in? Although he thought it was unlikely, he couldn't guarantee what Lu Cheng would look like behind his back. Don't ask, boss, you can't afford to cause trouble, don't make trouble for yourself, the old man persuaded. Is it possible, you can still call the boss to ask? Ask him why he doesn't care about his nephew. Standing there, Lu Feng also murmured in his heart, the R/U0026D company must be clean. If the main R/U0026D personnel are squeezed away by nepotism, the company will be doomed. In the eyes of a group of interns, they thought that Lu Feng realized that things were in trouble and that he had provoked the wrong people. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment and said indifferently, then call Lu Cheng over and ask. Call Mr. Lu over? Who are you? The mature-looking man looked at Lu Feng, feeling that he didn't seem to be joking. Who am I? Lu Feng said angrily, I am the boss of Jiafeng Electronics, who am I? After Lu Feng finished speaking, he walked upstairs. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Lu Tianpeng was even more fidgety and his face was pale. Everyone present looked at me, I looked at you, and said nothing. Lu Feng went upstairs, pushed open the door of Liuken's office, found no one, entered the office next door, and asked his assistant, where's Mr. Lu? Mr. Lu, the assistant was stunned when he saw Lu Feng, and hurriedly said, when did you come? Why didn't you make a phone call? Just here, where's Mr. Lu? Mr. Liu's meeting, he glanced at the time and said, it should be over, you sit first and I'll pour you a glass of water. Lu Feng sat down and asked, Lu Cheng got his nephew into the company. The assistant froze on the spot with the water in his hand, put the water glass on the table and thought for a while before saying, I haven't heard of it. Besides, the company clearly prohibits nepotism, isn't that unlikely? Ask him later. Lu Feng asked about the company's recent situation. The assistant didn't know much. When Lu Feng came last time, there was a breakthrough in the research and development direction of TV sets. The LCD project has been approved, and there was not much investment in the early stage. The display technology is being tested. There are still many achievements. Recently, Liuken held meetings all over the world. At the beginning of the year, so much money was spent. Now it is time to make some achievements. At the end of the year, the finished product will be produced. Test. After waiting for 10 minutes, Lu Cheng walked out of the conference room. When the assistant saw him coming out, he hurriedly took 2 steps and said, Mr. Lu is here. Mr. Lu? Which Mr. Lu? I'm busy, Lu Cheng said anxiously. Which boss Lu can there be, boss? Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment and wondered, I didn't call, isn't it in Xiangjiang? Just got back today. Lu Cheng hurriedly walked over to the assistant's office, opened the door and saw Lu Feng with a smile on his face, and said, "Why is Mr. Lu back?" "He told me about Mr. Lu." "Which one is Mr. Lu?" "It's been crazy busy these days, why didn't you call to let me know?" "I knew you were busy, so I didn't call." Lu Feng looked at Lu Cheng and asked, "How is the research and development progress?" "I heard him say that there is a breakthrough." Lu Cheng's face couldn't hide the joy. He sat down and said, "If you don't look for me, I have to look for you too. There is a big breakthrough in eye protection. To use a vulgar analogy, R/U0026D is like constipation, or a few months. Even if there is no movement for several years, once a breakthrough point is found, it will be absolutely fun." Lu Feng laughed when he heard his metaphor, and asked, "Is it okay to launch a new product by the end of the year?" "It shouldn't be a problem. We are the only eye protection screen in the world, or you have a vicious eye, and you are eyeing the selling point of eye protection. We have produced dozens of eye protection screens, and applied for a patent. The splash screen are still being debugged. We have made a lot of adjustments on the electron gun, and it is still under testing. The double-layer glass screen is more atmospheric and has no static electricity. We expect that the picture quality and operation logic of the finished product will definitely not lose to any product on the market today," Liu Can assured. Lu Feng kept nodding. This 100 million investment would be effective, and said, "We will discuss this matter at a meeting. Let me ask you something first. Did you put your nephew in the company?" "Nephew?" Lu Cheng was a little stunned and wondered, "I don't have a nephew, I'm an only son, where did I get my nephew?" Lu Feng recounted what happened when he entered the door, and Lu Cheng reconfirmed that he did not bring anyone over through personal relationships. He did bring in a few engineers, but they all came in through interviews. "This seems to be interesting." Lu Cheng laughed and said, "Mr. Lu, the person you mentioned, I always feel." Knowing what he wanted to say, Lu Feng took a sip from the water glass and said, "Tell me." "This Lu Tianpeng looks a lot like you." Lu Cheng laughed. "This kind of trick is like mine, but the layout is small. He pretends to be your nephew because no one dares to ask you to confirm. Even the supervisor has to give some face to his doubts, otherwise those interns will not be punished." He bluffed like that, Lu Feng analyzed. When selecting departments in the future, he will also take advantage of this advantage and choose the departments that are more profitable. "This is indeed a problem." Lu Cheng looked at Lu Feng and said, "I have no choice to deal with such people. This year, the R/U0026D company will expand. It's too fast, and the management is a bit understaffed. Then arrange a few more vice presidents. If you can be promoted from the company, try to promote from the company. If you can't do it again, you can't be airborne." Lu Feng pondered for a while and said, "This two-way selection rule for interns was still too ideal for me at the time. I don't want to hand over this right to HR, but now it seems that I still have to hand it over to HR. After all, many companies are operating this mechanism. I'll give an order to the personnel department to fire that Lu Tianpeng. This person does not conform to the spirit of the R/U0026D company." Lu Cheng finished speaking and prepared to instruct the assistant. "Wait a minute," Lu Feng interrupted him, "you can't just float on it. You know you're busy, but you're not busy 365 days a year. You still have to sink. The department, in the future, will be the management of the company. If the bottom is not good, it will gradually spread to the upper level. Let's go to the lower level and let the people below take a look." "Okay," Lu Cheng said and stood up. After Lu Feng left, Lu Tianpeng was always worried. The interns here were busy with their own business, but as time passed, nothing seemed to happen. The honest man was sitting there busy with his own business, and the others found that nothing was happening, so they stuck together and said, "Did that kid run away? It's been more than an hour. Going to find Mr. Lu for an hour. No shit, who are you scaring, really? Lu Tianpeng also felt alright, grinned and said, what if you are looking for President Lu? My uncle is here, so he can't scold me. Do you want my mother's face? It's not his sentence to fire a few interns. What's the matter? After Lu Tianpeng finished speaking, he put the water glass aside and said to the honest man, get me some water. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 594. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Lu Feng had already gone downstairs, and as soon as he got here, he saw the honest man holding a water glass and walking towards the water supply. What are you doing? Lu Feng stopped him. He raised his head and glanced at it, and said in a muffled voice, draw water. Who are you fetching water for? When Lu Tianpeng saw that Lu Feng was back and he was not following Mr. Lu, he instantly gained confidence and said, you haven't left yet. Are you doing something here? I'll fetch you water. Lu Feng was speechless as well, and said angrily, are you a bucket? You keep drinking water. None of your business. Didn't you call yourself the boss of Jiafeng? Didn't you go to my uncle? Lu Tianpeng smiled disdainfully and said, what? Went around the door of the office and ran back. Don't tell me about my uncle in the meeting. You wait a while to clean me up. I can't wait to be cleaned up. I want to be cleaned up now. If you don't have the ability, get out of my way. Before Lu Feng could speak, Lu Cheng rushed over in a hurry. When the others saw that Mr. Lu had really come to the internship, they all stood up in a hurry. All of them were a little confused. Why did they really come? Lu Tianpeng stood up and felt that things were a little out of his control. He still had the last glimmer of hope in his heart. Mr. Lu just wanted to take a look. He was very busy, and he had no intention of taking care of a group of interns. After Mr. Lu left, he could explain because, my uncle does not allow him to disclose his identity in the company. However, his fantasies fell through in the next second, and Lu Cheng said to him, can't wait to be cleaned up. There is such a hobby. Mr. Lu, I'm just kidding. Are you free to come to us today for inspection? Lu Tianpeng rolled his eyes, glanced at Lu Feng, and said, this person doesn't have a job license, so he the person who came in to ask questions. My name is Lu Tianpeng, and I am a talent center. Stop, stop. Lu Feng stopped him and asked, I want to ask you two things. One is why you asked people to fetch water? You said Lu Cheng is your uncle. I didn't say it. Lu Tianpeng looked confused, as if he had wronged him, and said, I remember, I met Mr. Lu some time ago, who looked like my uncle, and they misunderstood him. Now, I thought Lu was always my uncle, and when it comes to fetching water, just help each other, and I help them too. Lu Feng stared at Lu Tianpeng. The words slick were written all over the young man's face. In fact, Lu Feng didn't dislike him. Some people just put it in the wrong place. Do things smoothly. He is good at taking advantage of the situation to press people, and can be thrown to the marketing department to expand sales channels or other front-line work, but he did something wrong. When facing Lu Feng and Lu Cheng, he still handled things with tact. Lu Cheng said he was like Lu Feng, but Lu Feng felt a little bit like him just now. However, at this moment, Lu Feng felt that the two of them were very different. If Lu Feng faced a leader who was too strong to resist, he would only show a frank admission of everything. It is necessary to be smooth and difficult to face the opponent, and to have control and sense of responsibility towards the subordinate. Only in this way can we win over the subordinates. There is no better choice than being honest. Being slick on the face will only make the leader feel unreliable, fooling things, and unable to control this person. Lu Cheng smiled and asked everyone, you have been here for a while, right? How do you feel about the company? You should know which projects are suitable for you, right? Mr. Lu, I want to stay here. or be sent to a foreign cooperative research laboratory. I also feel like I fit in here. I'm very interested in a recent signal compilation project. Everyone talked in a fuss, basically picking fad projects. None of them went to the following research institutes. The most people wanted to go to foreign cooperative laboratories. First choose the United States, then Europe, and then not Japan. Lu Feng looked at these people. He has always held a kind of awe for scientific research. In other words, scientists have a relatively high status and sentiment in his heart. It is believed that these people have high ideal pursuits, but the reality is different from the imagination. The money and personal future are tied for the first place, and the research and development do not know where to go. This two-way selection mechanism for interns will only allow talents to flow to comfortable positions. No one is willing to really focus on R/U0026D. Again, Tesla is only a minority, Edison is the majority. I want to go to the research institute, said a voice that was not very confident. Lu Feng glanced around, only to realize that it was the honest man who was talking, and asked, "Why do you want to go to the research institute?" There are few people he cherished his words like gold. Like research and development, Lu Feng looked at him with glowing eyes. "No, it's because you don't have to deal with people, you don't have to talk," he explained. Lu Feng nodded, and it could be seen that he was someone with more serious social fears. Lu Cheng chatted with a group of people and introduced them to the crowd. Introduction: this is the chairman of GFN Electronics, President Lu. "Hello, Mr. Lu." The voices of the few who had spoken rudely to Lu Feng were extremely weak, and they did not dare to look at Lu Feng at all. Lu Tianpeng was very clever, such a big boss. If he really wanted to deal with him, he would have dealt with him a long time ago. Apparently in the past. "Hello, Mr. Lu, I didn't know it was you just now, and there was a misunderstanding," Lu Tianpeng explained with a smile. "I like to joke, don't mind." "Young people. It's normal, but you can't talk about your uncle being President Lu in the future," Lu Feng said. "It's just a joke, no one will believe it." Lu Tianpeng's smiling face almost froze. "You can't let others draw water for you. I hope that after you join the R/U0026D company, you will be able to show what you have learned, shine in your posts, and revitalize the domestic electronics industry," Lu Feng said to everyone, going big. "It is said that for the development of the country, it is said that it contributes to the enterprise in a small way. From a personal point of view, going to a higher place will live up to the years of life, and if you earn money, you will be able to join and live a good life." "Mr. Lu, what you said is great." Lu Tianpeng was the first to take the lead in applauding, and there was a burst of applause. "Okay, that's all, let's get busy." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he turned around and left. Lu Cheng waved his hand to signal them to sit down, turned his head and left with Lu Feng. "This Lu Tianpeng is really smooth, Mr. Lu, where do you think such a person is suitable?" Lu Cheng asked. "It's best to arrange it in someone else's company." After Lu Feng said, he strode away. Mr. Lu stopped to look at Lu Feng's back. He already knew in his heart that Lu Feng didn't like such people. He stepped into the personnel department and asked, "Is Mr. Lu here?" "Mr. Lu is out, what's the matter with you?" A woman in her 30s stood up and asked. "Make an arrangement. There is an intern in the internship department. Let's find a reason to get rid of it in the past 2 days. It's called Lu Tianpeng," President Lu instructed. The woman was stunned for a moment, thinking in her mind, how could an intern offend President Lu, but she nodded in response. Lu Cheng turned her head and walked out. Several people in the office looked at each other, and could not imagine that an intern was how to make President Lu unhappy. Back in the office, Lu Feng sat in front of the coffee table and poured himself a glass of water. When he saw Lu Cheng coming back, he said, "Is there the latest report? Also, the practice rules need to be changed. Let's leave it to the personnel department." The salaries of frontline R/U0026D personnel are tilted, and equity incentives are also tilted towards the front line of R/U0026D. I'll hold a meeting for personnel in a while, and this aspect needs to be redeployed. Lu Cheng took a few folders from the table and put them in front of Lu Feng and said, "This is the most recent financial statement, and there is not much money left. The long-term budget, there are still tens of millions of holes." Lu Feng opened the folder and glanced at it. Some cooperation projects will have a larger investment next year, and this year's successful breakthroughs are so intensive and fast, mainly because the money is poured out. Not only are there many laboratories abroad, Lyokan has also invested in 7 private laboratories for electronic engineers. These powerful people are the project chief engineers or second in command of large companies such as Samsung, Sony, and Motorola. They set up a private laboratory outside. After Lyokan found a way, he invested money in the laboratory. He invested enough money in the research and development of some key nodes. People would come and give pointers. Technology has a very strong lag. If it is the most advanced technology, it will definitely not leak. The key is that the technology that can be mass-produced and sold all over the world is something that was in the R/U0026D room more than 10 years ago. For enterprises, it is already a monetization technology. As long as it is iterated, it will be eliminated immediately. The difference between GFeng R/U0026D company and these companies is not only technology, but also background and accumulation. Lu Cheng knew what Lu Feng wanted and sighed, "This can't be done in a while." A company with core technology R/U0026D companies can only become industry leaders after more than 10 years, or even half a century of accumulation. Lu Feng nodded to show that he understood that he could buy anything, but technology couldn't. "I've been thinking about it recently. There is a way to make the foundation thicker in a short time," Lu Cheng said seriously. "Any solution?" "Acquisition. Buying some companies with technology patents from abroad, and then absorbing the technology, is the fastest way." Lu Cheng smiled bitterly. "This is actually not a solution, it's too expensive, just like a family. The price of the company is hundreds of millions of dollars. Billions of dollars." Lu Feng shook his head helplessly and said, "In the end, I'm still poor. Let's not talk about that. Can we watch the new products now? There are only some accessories, but there are drawings. Do you want to take a look at the shape design?" Lu Cheng stood up to get the drawings, and said, "The design department has made 6 shape designs, which are being discussed these days. Don't watch it, then look at the overall situation, and then change it if it is not suitable." Lu Feng stood up and was a little tired, and said, "Book me a flight ticket to Suzhou tomorrow. The company's overall situation is very good this year, and its foreign investment is basically the same. No, I didn't mess around, so next year's budget will be sufficient. You can rest assured that I can support you." Lu Cheng smiled a little embarrassedly, and said, "To tell the truth, I really dare not face Mr. Zhu now. The last time I met him, he teased me, saying that I was a daughter in the company, rich and raised. They are all silly boys, all sent out to make money." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 595. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Lu Feng laughed when he heard his explanation, patted Lu Cheng on the shoulder and said, "After all, the R/U0026D company is the core business of the entire company. Well, you are busy." Lu Feng found a hotel to stay and called Zhang Xiaoyan in the afternoon, telling her that he would go back tomorrow. In the afternoon, Sun Hongkai held an internal executive meeting. For the first time, Feng Xiao officially stood in the meeting room and introduced himself to everyone. Mr. Feng recommended in his own name and hoped to give Feng Xiao a chance to see it and ask everyone's opinions. How dare anyone present have any opinions? Although Sun Hongkai is a shareholder system, and Mr. Feng is not even a major shareholder, he has a very stable control of the company. Because it is listed on the Hong Kong stock market, UP shares are not implemented, but in the board of directors, Feng Mr. has set up a very rigid system. One vote veto. In major company resolutions, he has the right to veto with one vote. This system allows Mr. Feng to firmly control the company, and over the years, Sun Hongkai's shareholding has changed a lot. His three sons all hold shares. The feeling of being at home. Amidst the applause, Feng Xiao officially served as the vice president of the group and the director of the strategic investment department. At the same time, in the luxurious first-class cabin of an international flight, Mr. Chen was leaning on the seat. The stewardess next to her helped her pour champagne, and afternoon desserts were placed on the table in front of her. After the stewardess left, a man stood by and introduced her. This journey. Su Yorong stood up and helped to adjust the air volume of the air conditioner. All the services were so delicate, the economy class was like a slum compared to this place. In the evening, Chen Shifeng, who was awake, went to the bathroom. The plane was about to land in Pretoria. Su Yorong put her on the table and whispered, "I heard that the hotel tonight is very special. Let's walk around here and then set off to watch the animal migration." "Is it very hot here?" President Chen took a towel and wiped his neck and hands. The weather forecast said it was 35 degrees, but we had an RV to follow, Su Yorong explained. "Let's talk at the hotel." After a day's flight, Chen Shifeng was really tired, and she even regretted coming out. After all, she was no longer young and her physical strength was not as good as before. As the plane landed, a row of flight attendants stood beside them to send off the distinguished first-class passengers. People from the travel company were also waiting at the door, and Mr. Chen walked to the door in a crowd of bows. Su Yorong walked behind. Looking at the person in charge of the trip, he said, "Thank you, it's hard work." "What we should do," the man gave Su Yorong a standard smile. Su Yorong took out a stack of US$ from his bag and handed it over, put it in his jacket pocket, and followed President Chen off the plane. Park Renkai is a Korean. He has also received international tour groups before, and has the habit of tipping, but he has never received a private travel guide. Looking at the stack of dollars in his hand, he felt that his head was buzzing, and he said involuntarily, "Axie, Axie, Axie." After reacting, he hurriedly put the money in his pocket and rushed off the plane as if his legs were on a motor. He followed Mr. Chen without a word and bowed slightly. Before he came here, many colleagues told him that as long as he did a good job in this trip, he would not have to worry about it in his life. Originally, Park Renkai didn't care, thinking that he was relying on his ability to make money. Made money. But at this moment, he was a little unsteady. The last moment that made his legs soft was when he saw Xiao Piyu's wife next door. The travel company takes very good care of such high-end customers. Everything is arranged properly. When you get off the plane, it is a nanny car. The luggage will be transported to the hotel by a special person. Park Renkai meticulously asked what he needed in the car, and he could do it himself. "Shut up." President Chen was half lying on the seat and felt dissatisfied, while Su Yorong sat on the side and helped her rub her temples. Pu Renkai quickly shut up and didn't dare to speak. "When I arrived at the hotel, I arranged for Mr. Chen to have dinner first, and then went back to the room to rest. Take a rest tomorrow, don't be in such a hurry," President Chen ordered. "Okay, I'll go talk to them." After Su Yorong left the suite, she saw Park Renkai, who was waiting outside, beckoned to him, and entered the living room. "If you have any orders, feel free to advise." Pu Renkai was extremely respectful and even bowed to Su Yorong. "Don't make plans for tomorrow, Take a day off. Su Yorong sat on the sofa with Erlang's legs crossed and stared at the person in front of her. She knew that the other person was so respectful because of the $10,000, so she said, "You pick up this private person. Isn't it easy to travel? Want to make money? I think, as long as I can serve President Chen, I will do my best to go through fire and water." Pu Renkai's face was full of determination. "You don't need to be so bitter and grieving, sit down." Su Yorong pointed to the sofa opposite, and said, "I hope you understand a truth, Chen is always a big man, and he doesn't care about a little man like you. Just say no nice, you can get a few rewards, it all depends on my mood, understand?" "Understood. Just say what Miss Su has instructed. I still know some people here. You can tell me what you want to play. As long as you are in place, tomorrow we will fly to Egypt and pull the mummy out to play." "It's not a problem." Park Renkai has a feeling of giving up. "I've already said it doesn't matter, you just need to be obedient and listen to me." Su Yorong asked, "How many days did you originally plan the itinerary here?" 2 days, some ancient buildings, customs, snacks, etc. If you want to experience more, you can stay longer," Park Renkai answered truthfully. "Watching the animal migration in 2 days. Right. Let me ask you, what animals are there in the season? What size? What car do we take? Can we get close? Is there any danger?" Su Yorong threw a series of questions. Park Renkai thought that she wanted to ensure safety, and hurriedly assured, "You can rest assured, it is very safe. Now animals can migrate, all kinds of animals, tigers, lions, bison, elephants, wildebeest, zebra herds. The scale is very large. When the time comes, the scene is spectacular, with millions of animals in awe. We will go with 6 off-road vehicles, including a sightseeing car. President Chen will sit back in the sightseeing car to watch. We will bring a 5-person armed team with shotguns and 3 people familiar with animal migration. The locals will give guidance and bring 5 medical staff to prevent accidents, and at the same time, they will also bring a few service staff to take care of President Chen. If you think you need anything else, we can add more vehicles, or have other service needs," Park Renkai asked Su Yorong. "Is the sightseeing car a convertible?" Su Yorong asked. "It's a convertible Jeep." I see. Su Yorong took out another $10,000 from the bag and handed it to him. "You are doing very well. As long as you are obedient, you can say anything. I will go back to rest first and talk about it tomorrow." "Okay. Okay." Park Renkai stood up and kept saying "okay," hunched slightly until Su Yorong walked out of the door, and jumped up excitedly the next second, staring at the money in his hand. This is also very profitable, right? Axie." Park Renkai suddenly felt that money could come so easily. At this moment, there was only one thought left in his mind, and that was to try to get the most money before sending Mr. Chen away. Before he came, he thought that he could get $5,000 this trip, but now he has raised his budget to $50,000, and even secretly expects more, as long as he is obedient. Early the next morning, Lu Feng set off from the hotel and boarded a plane to Suzhou. Zhang Fengxia helped rent a small Western-style building, which is not too far from the factory. It is a 10-minute drive away. There is a small yard and neighbors, which is very good. Zhang Xiaoyan felt a lot better after moving in here. She often found Zhang Fengxia to go shopping. She prefers to live here. There are groups of old men and women gathered to chat together after leaving the gate, which is very lively. Unlike in the villa, where everyone closes the door to live their lives, she has lived for so long, and she doesn't know 3 people in total, so Duo is comfortable here. Not far from the family community, there are many children who run like crazy every day, went out to play and sweated profusely before coming back. Zhang Xiaoyan went back upstairs, wiped the sweat on her face with a towel, picked up the phone and called Zhang Fengxia's office. "Hey, Fengxia, Are you busy? Have you eaten? Zhang Xiaoyan asked. When you're done, you're ready to eat again, Zhang Fengxia smiled and said, don't worry about it, just let the nanny do it. I can't be idle either. I stewed some spare ribs today, and Aunt Lu cooked a lot of dishes. Come over at noon and eat a piece. Lu Feng is back today. Zhang Xiaoyan's words couldn't hide her happiness. He came back. Zhang Fengxia was slightly startled and said, why didn't I know? Didn't you call me? I went to Shenzhen yesterday, and said I was going to the R/U0026D company to see it. I'll be back today. Zhang Xiaoyan said happily, come here, let's be lively together. Then I'll be there in a while. Lu Feng didn't tell Zhang Fengxia or let the car pick him up. Instead, he took a taxi from the airport and went straight to his house. He wanted to take a break from work for a while. Sometimes, he recalled that he had been working hard every day for the past few years. It seems that I haven't felt at home for a long time. Even if I stay at home, I communicate with company executives on the phone every day, and I am also thinking about products, markets, business management, and a lot of other things. Half an hour later, Zhang Fengxia parked the car at the door and took out some fruits from the trunk. Zhou Ye ran out to help with the things, and Zhang Xiaoyan also came out and said politely, come here, why do you buy these? Come on in. The entrance was very lively for a while. This alley was full of small two-story Western-style buildings. It is definitely not ordinary people who can live in foreign-style buildings. However, Zhang Xiaoyan recently moved here, and many people have quietly noticed this neighbor. On weekdays, chatting will be optional to spy on some news, but Zhang Xiaoyan doesn't like to talk about this. She is not the stupid girl from a few years ago, she tells people everything. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 596. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Across 2 yards, a man in his 30s stood on the second floor of Xiaoyang building, with his hands in his pockets, standing in front of the window, watching the scene at the door of Lu Feng's house. What are you looking at? A handsome, good-looking woman came over. Old He's yard, the man gestured with his eyes and said, the second aunt in the front yard chatted with that woman a few days ago, and she spoke very loudly, saying that it was a big business. Mr. He is eating, he doesn't live in this yard anymore and rents it out. So what? The woman wondered. How is it? The man smiled disdainfully and said, bragging about being rich, and then renting a yard. The woman said she was pregnant, she was beautiful, and she didn't do anything all day long, probably in the early morning. Paid. Why do you think about this all day long? The woman sighed helplessly and said, what? Look at people beautiful. Look at you. The man retracted his eyes and said, Shiur, let me tell you, are we the hardest to talk about in this alley? What's the matter with the worker community next to us? Do you have to ask us for ventilation? The woman named Shiur nodded and said, yes, you are the youngest and most promising in this alley. A retired veteran cadre of the postal group must give you some face. There was a smug look on the man's face. What he is most proud of in life is that he started from scratch. When he was 30 years old, he broke into the world and married the goddess he liked back home. This alley is a small 2-story Western-style building. Now that you can live in this house, it represents a level in itself. Zhang Xiaoyan seems to have returned to the town after coming here, and she has to go for a walk on the street every day. There are always a bunch of neighbors gathered in the streets and alleys to chat, and she also has a good chat with some uncles and aunts. Sometimes the words reveal a bit of rich family information, or insights that are difficult for ordinary people to have. People, who doesn't like high and low, plus Zhang Xiaoyan is enthusiastic. If he buys too many things at home, he will send it out for free, which makes his prestige a bit high recently. A few days ago, An uncle also said that if Zhang Xiaoyan couldn't be free and wanted to work, she could go to the Street Women's Federation to work. Everyone could trust her, especially in terms of money. Xiu is a smart woman, she can see her man's thoughts at a glance, she just thinks Zhang Xiaoyan is too pushy. It's not easy for you to be a big man, let me come, Xiu gave him a look. Zhang Xiaoyan watched as the time approached noon. It stands to reason that Lu Feng should also come back. The vegetable field in the yard is planted with various vegetables. Tomatoes, eggplants, green peppers and other luxuriant branches and leaves seem to have a feeling of rural life. Zhang Xiaoyan likes this yard the most. This is the vegetable garden. The door was open, and the scorching sun in the sky seemed to melt the earth. Zhang Xiaoyan stood at the door and looked at the intersection with anxiety in her eyes. Zhang Fengxia walked out and said, "Go back and wait, it's such a big sun, don't get heat stroke, you're pregnant now." Has he forgotten his address? Zhang Xiaoyan said anxiously, "I don't know if the pager on his body has electricity, so he should go to the airport to pick him up, and he should be given a big brother in the future. He knows the address, and even if he doesn't know, he can go back to the factory." Zhang Fengxia took her arm and said, "Don't worry, he doesn't go anywhere, and he can lose it when he gets home from the airport, so don't run east. West ran away. I'll go back and call him on the paging station." Zhang Xiaoyan was about to go back to the yard as she spoke, when she suddenly saw a taxi in sight, and said in surprise, I'm back, I'm back." She was as happy as a child. At that moment, there was some kind of joy in her eyes, and Zhang Fengxia was stunned when she stood aside. Such a big person, but her happiness was so pure, the joy that radiated from the depths of her heart was overflowing. Whole face. Zhang Fengxia asked herself, she couldn't do it, she couldn't make her whole world belong to Lu Feng. "The sun is so big, what are you doing at the door?" Lu Feng opened the car door and walked out, looking at Zhang Xiaoyan and saying, "Go back to the house." Zhang Xiaoyan walked up to Lu Feng with a peach-like face, raised her head slightly and looked at him, shy like a little girl. "What's the matter?" Seeing her in such a state, Lu Feng couldn't help but ask Zhang Fengxia, "How come you look like a quail?" "You're just like a quail." Zhang Fengxia rolled her eyes at him and said, "I can't tell if they miss you. Isn't she pregnant? I'd definitely like to hear you say something nice when I see you." "It sounds good," Lu Feng thought about it and said, "You're awesome." "This is the end?" Zhang Fengxia asked in surprise. Old husband and wife. Lu Feng turned around and took the suitcase over, gave the fare, turned around and took Zhang Xiaoyan's hand and said, "It's too hot outside, don't get heat stroke, go back home." Duo flew out and asked Lu Feng, "Dad, what did you buy me?" "Doll, go home and give it to you," Lu Feng said, glanced at the yard, and said, "This yard is very good. A vegetable garden is much better than a building. Sister Xiaoyan rented this vegetable garden just because she took a fancy to it," Zhang Fengxia explained on the side. A group of people entered the house, Aunt Lu had already prepared the food, and Zhou Ya brought it to the table. The house was indescribably lively. A long-haired dog squatted in front of the house, looking like a mop, squatting there and sticking out his tongue. This dog was picked up from outside by Duo, fed every day and taken good care of. "Is morning sickness better these days?" Lu Feng looked at Zhang Xiaoyan and asked. He had never experienced it in his 2 lives. Although he called Dad a lot, it was there as soon as he opened his eyes. "It's almost August, it's been 2 months, and the morning sickness reaction has long since passed." Zhang Fengxia sat down and said, "Why do you two feel so restrained?" Zhang Xiaoyan was looking forward to it, but when he really sat in front of him, he didn't know what to say. It was Zhang Xiaoyan's first pregnancy and Lu Feng's first pregnancy. "What did the doctor say?" Lu Feng asked. "I just went for the checkup recently, and said that everything is normal, because I'm more nervous, and gave me a lot of birth control pills. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng and said, "What is this child's name? Do you want to name it first?" "Name it now," Lu Feng said. "It's too early, let's talk about it after birth." "What are you talking about?" Zhang Fengxia was a little dissatisfied on the side, and said, "I'm sure I'll be born, I'll be Neza in my stomach, it's so hard to name my own child, you can't afford it, I'll do it." "Damn it, let's call Lu Yuki, grand." Go, Lu Feng said with disgust for a while. "Is this still the returnee?" "What level? There is already a lot, then add a little more." "Young Master Lu," Zhang Fengxia laughed and said to Zhang Xiaoyan, "It doesn't feel as good as me." Zhang Xiaoyan murmured inwardly, "The name Xiao Xiao is a boy or a girl?" "Are you still going out this time?" Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng with anticipation in her eyes. "If you don't go out, all business trips will be cancelled. It's not too short of development time. Stay at home with you." "I work in the factory every day and come back for dinner at night," Lu Feng replied earnestly. "Isn't there any expansion in international trade? Didn't you say that this trip is to control Chen's capital? It seems that it has not been completed yet," Zhang Fengxia said. Lu Feng sighed and pondered, as if he had encountered a problem. Zhou Ya brought the last dish and everyone began to eat. "Have you encountered a problem?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked concerned. "It's okay, it's just that the pace is too big and we need to slow down. Our products are not easy to sell internationally, and our shareholders do not support us to go international now. We have already formed scale and industrialization, and the next step is groupization. Be prepared, ready to rush out at any time," Lu Feng said while eating. "The current VCD is an important pillar to support the enterprise. Mr. Lu said that the new generation of Wipita may be mass-produced by the end of the year. We should now expand the product line and form a product matrix. My idea is to make simple home appliances in the second half of this year." Zhang Fengxia glanced at Lu Feng and said, "We can do things like electric fans, electric irons, shavers, and flashlights in the short term to cover the needs of users' households, and use one-stop shopping to push them directly in front of users. Even for larger appliances such as refrigerators, washing machines, and ovens, we don't have enough technology. We can cooperate with big manufacturers. We do OEM sales. We don't make money, just to make a name," Zhang Fengxia said seriously. "Some time ago, I talked to several senior executives of the brand department, held several meetings, and it is best to create an all-around brand image, and users will come to us no matter what they think of. Full product line array?" Lu Feng laughed and said, "This idea is good. The problem is that if the profit is low, the end market will not make money, and the competitive advantage will be lost. I'm also thinking about this issue. The brand department told me this aspect. One of their ideas is that the most popular model in the United States is called one-stop shopping, a large-scale supermarket chain model." Lu Feng pondered thoughtfully. It was beautiful and very feasible. If this idea came to fruition, Lu Feng would definitely be the richest man in the world. The problem is that the cost of each large-scale electrical goods supermarket is very high. One city builds one, and the current consumption capacity cannot support it at all. Moreover, there are two largest fortresses in the country, the supply and marketing cooperatives and the wholesale city. "Let's talk when we go back, let's eat first," Lu Feng said, and put a piece of meat for Zhang Xiaoyan and put it in the bowl. When Lu Feng went home, all the neighbors saw it. Since Zhang Xiaoyan moved in, it was the first time that a man had come to the house. Many people secretly muttered to themselves, "Didn't she say that she was a good man, why did she come back in a taxi?" Xiu'er was eating and said to her man, "Why do I think this Zhang Xiaoyan looks like a liar? It must be her man. If you didn't see it, he hugged him at the gate, he didn't look like a serious person. She looks honest, but she doesn't say a word of truth in her mouth. That's fine. Let everyone see it." During this time, Everyone in this alley is flattering her, the man said angrily. You didn't see it, a few days ago. Zhao Runmi, I stood in the crowd and flattered, as if giving her money. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 597. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. The villa area by the sea belongs to the high-end wealthy area. Such an area is destined to have less communication. Everyone has an intersection at various banquets. Except for the business field, the human touch is relatively light. And this kind of neighborhood neighbors, although they get together every day, and the parents chat for a short while, but after closing the door, they can't say what to say behind their backs. These are completely two living conditions. Obviously Zhang Xiaoyan prefers the second type. She grew up in this kind of neighborhood environment. The living room door of the house is open, the heat wave from outside the house is pouring into the house, the electric fan is blowing, sometimes there is the buzzing of flies in the ears, the dog is full and lying on the ground sticking out its tongue, the big tree outside the door there was a flock of birds chirping. The steamed buns were sweating profusely during the meal, Aunt Lu cut up the watermelon and brought it up. Zhang Xiaoyan was wearing loose clothes and her slippers were drooping on her feet. A group of people were talking and chatting. Lu Feng was also very happy, and sometimes whispered and ran outside the house. He got into the ears of his neighbors and inadvertently shared his happiness with others. Everything was so peaceful, like a summer day in memory. There was a cucumber picked from the garden on the table. Lu Feng took one and took a bite. If you have a business trip, Fengxia will go. Me, Zhang Fengxia nodded and said, okay, let's take it easy. If there is no new expansion, it's actually not much of a problem. Have the arrangements for Huashat? Lu Feng asked Zhang Xiaoyan. There's basically no problem. Let the manager be responsible for the busy work. I'll call and ask every once in a while. Zhang Xiaoyan suddenly remembered something and said, by the way, Mom called a few days ago and told me to take advantage of the summer vacation. Go back and say you want to take care of me for a few days. Then what do you mean? Lu Feng asked. Zhang Xiaoyan was a little awkward. Of course, she wanted to go back and let her mother-in-law serve her for a while. She was wronged last year during the Chinese New Year. Why don't you go back for a while? Zhang Fengxia thought that Lu Feng couldn't let go of the company, and said, there are basically no major problems in the company, and the market competition is not so fierce now. Would you like to accompany me back for a while? Mom said to go back and give me a delicious meal every day, and I'll sit on the kong to eat. Zhang Xiaoyan had a smile on her face, as if she wanted to regain her attitude of being a daughter-in-law. Seeing her like this, Lu Feng hurriedly said, forget it, I haven't asked the company for a while. In the second half of the year, Vipta will launch new products, so hurry up. Besides, you are not suitable for those who are tired of traveling and driving, and you need to go to the hospital for regular check-ups. Although Lu Feng's words are reasonable, what he is most afraid of is that there will be some conflicts between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law at this time. After Zhang Xiaoyan is pregnant, her self-confidence has skyrocketed. Be patient, stay for a long time, there are bumps, and it is yourself who is embarrassed. Lu Feng didn't want to get involved in this kind of family dispute, mainly because he didn't have much affection for his parents, so it was best to keep a certain distance. Yes, Zhang Xiaoyan said, slightly disappointed. The factory has been listening smoothly recently, Lu Feng asked Zhang Fengxia. It's all normal, but one thing is that the bank's 200 million yuan is not due, Zhang Fengxia said with a wry smile. It wasn't an interest-free loan before. You didn't say that we would repay the interest and continue to borrow, and the bank would not agree. If you don't agree, let him take away the factory. We will stop production. Lu Feng took a bite of the cucumber and leaned back on the chair. He didn't dare to close the factory, but he dared to entangle me. Zhang Fengxia was obviously annoyed by the entanglement, and sighed. The 4 vice presidents of them take turns, and they follow me every day, just like chanting scriptures. I was talking about paying back the money, so I came here to stay with Sister Xiao Yan for one night when I was upset. Give it to me. Everyone was sitting at the table eating watermelon and chatting about the shortness of the parents. Zhang Xiao Yan didn't come here for a long time, but he got acquainted with the people in this alley. Fengxia, I told you last time that the lame man from the second house in Dongtu is not a fuel-efficient lamp. His legs were broken by molesting women in his early years. Zhang Xiaoyan was gossiping. Road. Really? Zhang Fengxia's eyes lit up, she rubbed forward and said, his daughter-in-law is very beautiful, she could be seen when I came last time. You don't know, the second marriage, his daughter is not his. It looks so rich. It was only later that I got rich. I heard from a tofu seller in the worker community in front of me that Li Lei's current daughter-in-law used to be his cousin's daughter-in-law. Oh my god. Zhang Fengxia couldn't care less about Lu Feng, and the two faced each other, exchanging this exciting unofficial history. Lu Feng had no interest in these things. He turned around and saw Duo sitting on the small bench, holding the dog in his arms. This dog is a pet dog, with white, long and curly hair. There are a bunch of dolls next to Duo, holding a small comb, a small rubber band in his hand, and grabbing the dog's hair to tie the dog's pigtails. This dog is also pitiful. It looks painful when its hair is being pulled, and it doesn't dare to bark. Lu Feng watched it for a while, then walked over and said, "Don't torture it. It likes braids, and I gave it a bath a few days ago." Duo hugged the dog and said, "It was dirty when I first found it, Dad, kiss it." "I don't kiss," Lu Feng shook his head. "You kiss," Duo insisted. Lu Feng had no choice but to kiss him. The dog stuck out his tongue and licked it. Lu Feng hurriedly wiped it with his hands and said, "Since I brought it back, I'll take good care of it and feed it on time. It doesn't need to be fed." "Then isn't it starving to death?" Lu Feng had a bad premonition in his heart. "No," Duo raised his head and grinned at Lu Feng, "it eats Baba." "Bot, bot, bot," Lu Feng kept pouting, stood up and hurriedly rinsed his mouth. After washing, he came out and said, "Don't play with it, it's dirty." Duo hugged the dog and didn't let go at all. A little girl ran in outside the door, stood at the door and shouted, Duo, go out and play." "What are you playing?" Duo looked out the door. "Jump the rubber band, Xia will go too." "Will Li's Haiqiang and the others go?" "I don't play with boys," Duo said with a bit of arrogance. "They don't go, we don't play with boys." Duo put down the dog and ran towards the door. Lu Feng sat on the small bench and watched Duo run out, feeling a little emotional in his heart. The child has grown up. Suddenly there was a feeling of an old father, and I was quite emotional. The dog ran out with a lot of things, and it was not a big deal, and came back after a while. "Come on, come here," Lu Feng waved at the dog, grabbed it, took off its rubber band and hairpin, and said, "Since we have entered this house, we will not be allowed to eat shit in the future. Our family is relatively wealthy, do you understand? It just so happens that I am too busy to cut your hair, or I will make you bald sooner or later." Lu Feng did what he said, picked up the scissors and started cutting. The sun is not only scorching the land of Suzhou, it is even more severe when facing other animals on the African land. The temperature here is approaching 40 degrees. The high temperature forces a large number of animals to migrate to places with water sources. Also moves with herbivores. At the same time, the high temperature also forced Mr. Chen to cancel all outings. He planned to go directly to see the animal migration, and then fly to Europe for vacation. Today, Su Yurong followed Park Renkai to check the vehicles that will travel tomorrow, and at the same time make arrangements for tomorrow's route and time. In the garage, listening to 7 or 8 off-road vehicles, standing in a dozen people, most of these people are dark, it seems that they know that they are exposed to the sun all year round. These are guides. We have already found a migrating fauna. We will leave at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and are expected to arrive at around 10 o'clock. We were originally going to the largest plain to see, because President Chen changed the time, so we can only stay close to here. There are also animal migrations in a place 300 kilometers away. Park Renkai introduced, even though the number is relatively small, there may be thousands of animals in total, and there are also beasts. They are heading south. Mr. Su, can you tell Mr. Chen that if you stay for 2 more days, the talents on the Great Plains will be spectacular. Mr. Chen is very uncomfortable, because of the jet lag and unaccustomed to the soil and water, so I won't stay any longer. Su Yurong looked at a row of cars and asked, which car is the sightseeing car we will take tomorrow? This one. Pu Renkai pointed to an off-road driveway with a tarpaulin roof. This tarpaulin roof can be lowered for a close look. Su Yurong nodded slightly and looked around. Park Renkai was a little anxious. He originally thought that it would take a week. Su Yurong was too generous. He also wanted to make a lot of money. Such a situation. Mr. Su, Park Renkai whispered, can you let President Chen go to the hospital to take a look first, and extend the trip a little bit? It's not easy for me to come out. Want to make money? Su Yurong laughed. Park Renkai nodded hurriedly. It's easy to make money. I have a way to make money. It depends on whether you earn the money or not. Su Yurong took off the gloves, patted Park Renkai and said, can you grasp it? Yes, absolutely, whatever service you need, don't hesitate to mention. If you want to accompany me, I can do it. Park Renkai patted his strong chest with extra confidence. Roll. Can our sightseeing car move a bit? Su Yurong looked back at the car and said, I'll give you $200,000, can this be done? 200,000. Pu Renkai's pupils dilated. This number was enough to make him worry-free for half his life. Nodding like a garlic, you say, how to change it? You can change it wherever you want, and I will do it. Break. Where? Park Renkai thought he heard it wrong, and asked again, where do you want to change? Change the brakes, seat belts. Su Yurong stared at him and said, do you understand? You have to understand that the money is yours. If you don't understand, then I can't help it. Park Renkai's mind was blank, and his breathing was a little unstable. He has always been a good person. The worst thing he has ever done in his life is to hook up with other people's wives. But this is murder. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 598. The fastest update to return to the latest chapter of 1990. Seeing that he hesitated, Su Yurong breathed a sigh of relief, took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit one, took a puff, and said, what are you afraid of? Where is this? What country's land is under your feet? Park Renkai suddenly realized as if he had been bludgeoned, this is Africa. You go back to your country with the money and enjoy what you deserve, okay? Su Yurong asked again. Park Renkai nodded heavily and said, okay, I'll go and call the driver. Park Renkai called over a thin man, who looked to be in his 40s or 50 years old, wearing a pair of washed and whitish short sleeves, and looked at Su Yurong. This boss is very rich, how about letting you do something? Park Renkai asked in the local language. The other party has also eaten and met, and of course he understands the job, and asked, how much is it? I only need $. Don't worry, it's absolutely in place. Change the brakes and seat belts of the sightseeing car, and give you $500. Park Renkai asked with 5 fingers. What are you going to do first? He asked how to do it. I told him just now that he asked for $50,000, but he didn't agree or refuse. Pu Renkai said to Su Yurong. $50,000. Su Yorong didn't expect that this man in rural dress was really a lion. They didn't agree, they didn't refuse, they asked what to do first. Pu Renkai hurriedly explained for fear that the price would be too high to scare Su Yorong away. It's simple, it was an accident. He changed the car and walked closer to the animals tomorrow. Leave the rest to me, Su Yorong said. Park Renkai nodded and said to the man, walking next to a lion or tiger group and creating an accident, do you understand? The man thought about it and said, no problem, 500 is too little. Not a lot, can you earn $500 a month? Park Renkai said, don't bargain here, I know you earn only $80 a month, I know very well. Boss, you can't count it like this. I'm fine with 500 alone, but what about my brothers? The man turned his head and glanced at the group of people behind him and said, this kind of thing, right? Park Renkai glanced at it. I also feel that I need to keep my mouth shut. If something goes wrong, he will be finished. Besides, for such a rich boss, maybe his family members will come to investigate. Okay, $500 per person. After Park Renkai finished speaking, he said to Su Yorong, I've already negotiated it, $50,000, but they wouldn't agree. I said I'd do more work for them. Although Su Yorong didn't understand what the two of them said, she could see from the expressions on their faces that there was something tricky about it, so she didn't care too much. She nodded and said, okay, let's change the car. Park Renkai said to the man, it's done, hurry up and change the car. Give me the money first. The man stared at Park Renkai and said, give it in a while. Pu Renkai took Su Yorong aside to talk about money. Everything was going on calmly. Chen Shifeng was still lying in the hotel, her mental state was not good, she went to the hospital last night. The originally month-long trip to Africa had to end early. If it weren't for the fact that all came, she would now want to fly to Europe. After 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng looked at the bald dog in front of him and nodded with satisfaction. Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia had already chatted with the three widows of the cosmetic city from Li Crippled. The two are like two gossip middle-aged women. Especially after Aunt Lu joined her, she still had to look at her elders. She had experienced a lot of things, even if she was not cultured, but she had a background, and she talked about gossip from decades ago. Zhou Ya helped to pour tea and water. Lu Feng stroked the dog's hair and sighed secretly. After staying by their side for a while, he could write novels. The thing that came out of their mouths was one thing. More bizarre than one, we can only sigh that reality is more absurd than fiction. Duoduo's face was flushed, and he ran into the yard with a few little girls, and said as he walked, I told you not to bring boys, it's really disturbing, stop playing with rubber bands, and tie my dog. Go to my house, my dog is so good. Your dog has no hair, but my dog has long hair. That's right, a lot of dogs are the funniest. A few little girls walked inside while talking, but Lu Feng was stunned for a moment, clutching a large amount of dog hair in his hand, and hurriedly hid behind him. Before Duoduo came in, he asked Lu Feng, Dad, where's the dog? Dog, the dog went out to play. Lu Feng hesitated. It rarely goes out on its own, only I take it out. Duoduo said a little unhappily, it definitely won't go out to play. Why not? Just now 3 missing 1, went to the rescue. As soon as Lu Feng finished speaking, the dog that had been bald ran out from the inside. Seeing the dog in front of Duoduo, he yelled, where's the hair? Duoduo started to cry, and Zhang Xiaoyan and Zhang Fengxia didn't even bother to chat. When they saw Lu Feng cut the dog like this, everyone laughed. It was already evening and dusk during the laughter, and the phone at home rang. The person who answered the phone was looking for Zhang Fengxia. After answering the phone, Zhang Fengxia sighed and said, Vice President Zhou stayed in the factory's reception room for a long time again. I'll go talk to him tomorrow. Lu Feng motioned her not to get angry. Aunt Lu was busy in the kitchen, the temperature dropped, and people in the alley came out to enjoy the shade. The topic of the conversation was that a man had come to Zhang Xiaoyan's house. In an open space in the middle of the alley, a dozen or so people, men and women of different ages, were standing or sitting, and Xiu were dressed up and stood there nibbling melon seeds. It seems that a man has come to Zhang Xiaoyan's house. Who is he? She's a man. Just now, Duo came over to play. I asked and said it was her father. Zhang Xiaoyan keeps talking about how rich his man is, so why did he come back in a taxi? Xiu said, knocking on the seeds. My man told me a few days ago that people are not old-fashioned these days. Pay more attention. Have you heard that there is a fundraiser now, and many people have been deceived? Really? What's the matter? I haven't heard of it. Xiu said with a face I knew. I've heard that this type of gang specially finds a place for rich people to live, and tells these people how rich they are, and then they do whatever project they want, take your money away, not coming back. Hey, be careful with this. That's right, the world is not peaceful. There are many liars. My uncle's family cheated more than 20,000 people last year, and the days have not passed. Xiao Yan is not that kind of person. Seeing that she has a lot of money in dressing up, she is not an ordinary person. Knowing people and faces but not hearts these days. Zhang Xiaoyan was a little tired from sitting in the room. Zhang Fengxia was chatting with Lu Feng about the bank. She came out to walk her legs. The doctor told her that maintaining a certain amount of exercise was good for childbirth. After going out, he walked over to the crowd and said, Xiu is here too, it's really hot today. Xiaoyan, your man is back, the second aunt asked. Yeah, I just got home today, and I'm busy for a business trip for a month or two. It's hard to earn any money. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Xiu and said, unlike your man, who stays at home and goes home every day, be more at ease. My man earns a lot. If I can't make money, I can't go out, Xiu said while nibbling on the seeds. It's really hard for a man to run around for the money. Xiu used to be a flower in this alley, and at that stop, she must have a face, and she must have a figure. After Zhang Xiaoyan came, it was inevitable that she would be unbalanced. Xiu took Zhang Xiaoyan, and her man took Lu Feng. Zhang Xiaoyan is well aware of these things, but she just doesn't want to be angry with her, so she said, who said no, in fact, the money is enough to spend, and the amount you earn is more. Didn't you say that your man is amazing? You haven't earned enough yet. Xiu cast a glance at Zhang Xiaoyan, and said with a look of contempt, if it wasn't for your man to take a taxi back, we would have really stunned you. What's not to scare you off? You just live with the door closed. Why do you have to glance at the neighbor's house? Zhang Xiaoyan smiled very grandly, and said to everyone, money is a thing, if you earn more, you have to have more money. Hold your breath, women need to be virtuous, and in the final analysis, they still need to have culture and connotation. An aunt next to her heard this and asked, does Xiaoyan still have culture? Xiu also knows a lot. Xiu clapped her hands after eating the melon seeds and said proudly, I also have a junior high school diploma. At that time, I was not only a handsome girl from Shili Baxiang, but also a talented girl. I graduated from high school, Zhang Xiaoyan said casually. You said that you will graduate from high school, so what kind of intellectuals are you calling? Xiu couldn't hold back her breath. She glanced at Zhang Xiaoyan and said, why don't you say you are a college student? Have you studied geometry and functions? What is that? An aunt asked. High school math problems. Xiu was already full of anger, and the more she looked at Zhang Xiaoyan, the more unpleasant she became. She said bitterly, so what if I went to high school, or I haven't married yet, or I need to rent an apartment to live in? Xiu, I'm just staying here for a while, and that's what I said. Shut the door for myself, Zhang Xiaoyan said to her. In the alley, Mr. Hong came over with an enamel tank and said, "What's the quarrel? I can hear it all the way, these two little wives can't finish talking all day long, why? Now, what are you showing off here?" Seeing the smile on Uncle Hong's face, Xiu'er said, "Uncle Hong, you have come out to enjoy the shade. We are just chatting. You are in good health. Come to my house to eat with your aunt tonight." "Xiu'er, you let your Uncle Hong come to your house for dinner not once or twice, why didn't you let us?" the second aunt said. The staff community in front belonged to the postal group. Uncle Hong, as a retired worker, lived in this small two-story Western-style building. He was definitely not an ordinary person. "I heard that the leaders who were quite big in the past, Xiu'er and his wife always wanted to treat guests to dinner when they met Uncle Hong." Uncle Hong took a sip of tea and joked, "Xiu'er, why don't you invite your second aunt first?" Everyone burst into laughter. Xiu'er obviously didn't want to invite her. The second aunt was able to live here because of her son, and her son was abroad, so there was no need for such a relationship. Otherwise, let me make a suggestion. The weather is hot today, and the house is very hot. We can count everyone in this alley, and we can produce a few dishes, Uncle Hong suggested. Get together for a meal, how about it? Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 599. When Uncle Hong proposed it, everyone naturally agreed, and there was a chorus of responses. Xiu'er said with a smile, "It happens that my family is also there. There are still a few bottles of Mao Tai at home. You two have a drink." He did what he said. The sun was setting, and the smoke was wafting from the kitchen. Zhang Xiaoyan returned home, ordered Zhou Ya to move the table out, and said to Zhang Fengxia, "Fengxia, if there is nothing in the factory, just stay here at night." "How do you move the table outside?" Zhang Fengxia asked in confusion. Uncle Hong said that there is a gathering in the alley. "Let's have a meal together." Zhang Xiaoyan walked to Lu Feng's side, reached out and stroked his back lightly. "Chen Hanzhen's wife just ran on me." "Why did you run on you?" Lu Feng looked at her and said, "Don't care about some people, keep your mood better." "I don't care. I'm very lenient now. I'll go out to dinner in a while, so I can show myself well." Zhang Xiaoyan sat on the chair and said, "Chen Hanzheng is a few years older than you, he opened a company, and his wife doesn't know what to do." "Silly." Lu Feng looked at her a little surprised. Is this the Zhang Xiaoyan he knew? In the past, Zhang Xiaoyan was scared to death. Even if he was running a cosmetics factory, he didn't look like he was competing with others, but now he encourages him to show it. "What do you think I'm doing?" Zhang Xiaoyan wondered. "Aren't you afraid of anything?" Lu Feng laughed and said, "I feel like you are a little too confident. I can even conceive a child. I walk with my head held high, and I don't care about anyone, and I'm not afraid to go to your house." Zhang Xiaoyan's face was full of confidence. "It's like she has changed," Zhang Fengxia said aside. Indeed, Zhang Xiaoyan used to be more restrained, feeling that there was an unknown black hole deep in her heart that absorbed everything in her, but now she is more cheerful and smiles with a bit of sunshine. "Let's not argue about this, just be happy," Lu Feng said happily. Duo happily ran back and forth, shouting about picnics and picnics. The alley was already full of people, and the sharp voices of a few aunties pierced the dusk, adding a touch of firework to the sunset. In summer, there are more mosquitoes, so a bonfire is lit. The thick smoke first smokes the alley. All kinds of dishes are served. A group of big men gather to chat about national affairs, from international to provincial, from international to provincial. When talking about units in the province, what they say is straightforward. "Tonight's pancakes." Lu Feng walked out with pancakes and pickles. In the dim light at dusk, a few people squatted aside and saw Lu Feng go out. "This is Zhang Xiaoyan's man." "Don't you say, boss, so young." "Nonsense, How big is Zhang Xiaoyan, and it's not Bao Ernai, so naturally it's not that big. A lean man stood up and walked over, and said to Lu Feng, "Are you a man from Xiaoyan?" "Yes, my name is Lu Feng," Lu Feng said, putting the pancakes on the table and saying, "Come here, try the pancakes, Aunt Liu's pancakes are delicious. Don't worry, come, smoke." While talking, a cigarette flew over. Lu Feng grabbed the cigarette and said, "I haven't smoked for a long time, and I have quit. There are about 30 people in this alley, men and women, young and old. The sky has darkened. A 100-watt tungsten filament lamp is hung on the door of a house. The flames of the bonfire are also rising." He pulled out a few burning wooden sticks and played with it. Naturally the adults scolded him. "Xiu'er, let your Hans Hung eat," the second ant shouted. After a while, a man in his 30s walked out. He was about 1.75 meters tall. Come, sit here, let's sit at a table with a bunch of big men," Uncle Hong greeted. Chen Hans Hung came over, glanced at the slightly cramped seat, put his hand on Lu Feng's shoulder, and pulled it to the side. Lu Feng was almost pushed over by someone with a stool, so he hurriedly squeezed to the side. "It's all right, let's squeeze together and give Uncle Hong more room." Chen Hans Hung sat down and glanced at Lu Feng, and asked, "Isn't Xiao Yan a man?" "Hello," Lu Feng said politely. "Don't look at Xiao Yan's recent move here. She is very familiar with the people in the alley. She often mentions you, saying that you are doing big business outside. Did you hear about hundreds of millions of transactions?" Chen Hans Hung asked slightly pointedly. "It's all right." Lu Feng didn't want to talk deeply. He was afraid to talk about the company now. Otherwise, all kinds of people would come to the door after a while, so he wanted to get close. "We're all in small business, and we've never had contact with big bosses. We don't know much about your billion-dollar business. How did you do it?" Chen Hans Hung was a bit reluctant. He felt that Zhang Xiaoyan must be bragging about how big a deal with assets of over 100 million. Can such a person live in a yard and rent it? Moreover, Lu Feng was still so young, and he didn't have the prestige of a boss. The boss, he imagined, would come in and out in groups, with a group of people behind him. "Don't talk about work, the recent work has been a headache." Lu Feng naturally saw what he was thinking, smiled and said, "It's business, that's it, you have to pretend to be wider when you go out." Chen Hans Hung laughed, opened the wine and poured it over to Uncle Hong, and said, "You have a taste. I used to be the youngest in this alley, but now I don't count. In a few decades, I will be like Uncle Hong, basking in the sun." "Yes, but I can't compare to Uncle Hong, who is basking in the sun and winning 1,000 miles away." "You kid," Uncle Hong smiled happily. "But Mr. Chen is still the most promising among the young people in our alley," another uncle praised. "It doesn't matter, Mr. Lu is much better than me." Chen Hans Hung took over the conversation and said, "This year has passed more than half of the time. I am very average this year, and I only earned 500. 500? How much is it?" "More than 500,000. Hey, it's amazing. Come, Han Shen, I respect you." Chen Hans Hung drank a drink. Xiu'er sat next to eat and chatted with a group of women. The expression on his face showed the word proud. "Lu Feng, you've been busy for half a year, how much have you earned?" Xiu'er asked deliberately. "Me?" Lu Feng thought for a while and said, "I can't even reach 500. Everyone burst into laughter, and Chen Hans Hung took the opportunity to run on the money and said, "Aren't you doing a business worth hundreds of millions? The transaction is hundreds of millions, and the profit is low. Not to mention, it's all bitter tears." Lu Feng waved his hand and didn't want to talk more. Zhang Fengxia was eating and whispered to Zhang Xiaoyan, "You asked him to give you a face, but he didn't do it. He's just like this, for fear that others will find out, and he's trying to get in touch again and ask him to do something." Zhang Xiaoyan still knows Lu Feng. He pretends to be poor when he meets ordinary people, and fights for riches when he meets rich people. Don't talk about Lu Feng, Zhang Xiaoyan is now afraid of becoming rich. When he goes home for the new year, he will be on the third floor and the third floor. If you don't help, it's all about that. Help, you can't help. Let's drink one, Chen Hansheng raised his glass and said. Everyone touched the glass, and Chen Hansheng suggested, let Uncle Hong tell everyone a few words, and everyone applauds. There was a sparse applause at the scene. Uncle Hong stood up, cleared his throat, quite the attitude of an old cotter, and said, that. It's fate for everyone to get together. Although this alley does not belong to the workers' community, our hearts must go to the postal workers' community. Let's unite and make an agreement. Mutual aid and friendship, we must do a good job of hygiene, family style, and neighbor-blind dates. We must do 3 things. We must live in harmony, we must unite, and we must, Okay, Chen Hansheng took the lead in applauding. Everyone applauded, and Lu Feng just laughed and applauded. Uncle Hong sat down, picked up the glass and said, that's me now. A few years ago when I lectured, there are thousands of people below. You are the leader. Go to that station, and the majesty will come out. Chen Hansheng flattered, you retired, but the majesty of the leader still surrounds you. That's right. Han Sheng is right. Everyone agreed, and Uncle Hong smiled very happily. He took a sip of white wine, and his facial features were all wrinkled. He took a mouthful of cold vegetables and put it in his mouth, and asked, Han Sheng, your logistics company is very profitable. Thanks to you, it's easy to do things under the postal banner. Otherwise, you will have to pay as much as you can for road maintenance, not to mention that there are still roadblocks in remote areas. Chen Hansheng muttered. Is Han Sheng doing logistics? Lu Feng asked. Chen Hansheng glanced at Lu Feng and said, if you run a company, a small company, you can't compare with your hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. You have dozens of trucks and only a few hundred people. There are hundreds of people. Isn't there only 100 or so people last year? Xiu'er couldn't hold it any longer and said, isn't this expansion this year? We have set up a few unloading points in Changzhou and Lianyungang, but we can't increase the manpower. Big company. Han Sheng is still capable, and he will be the boss soon. He lives in a villa. A middle-aged man said with a glass of wine, come here, I respect you. Being able to be looked at by people in the whole alley is definitely a matter of gold on the face. Chen Hansheng once again demeaned himself, glanced at Lu Feng and said, it's not as good as Mr. Lu, who is a business of hundreds of millions. Mr. Chen, don't mention it, Lu Feng said with a smile, otherwise I won't be able to eat this meal. Xiu'er put down her chopsticks, looked at Zhang Xiaoyan's comfort, and said, you say this, people are more popular than people, don't you? Zhang Xiaoyan is quite used to this kind of comparison between neighbors. She grew up in such an environment, smiled and didn't speak, and Zhang Fengxia couldn't help it. She is from a veteran cotter family, and since she was a child, she has never been as crowded as her neighbors, but she is not from this alley, so she couldn't help muttering, ignorance is sometimes a kind of happiness.